sometimes maybe you're watching TV or listening to the radio and you suddenly realize like you haven't been paying attention for the last minute and you have no idea what they're talking about anymore. Well, your ears were still working. Like you were still getting the input. You just weren't paying attention to it. So your experience is different. So I think pain can be that same way where you can't cut off the signals coming to your brain, but you can kind of modulate to an extent how much you pay attention to it, and that can then kind of change how much you suffer from it.
Welcome to Migraine Again, helping you eat, breathe, survive, thrive, and engage better despite migraine. If you or someone you know struggles with migraine often, join us for today's insightful conversation. Now here's your host, founder and managing editor of migraineagain.com and co-host of the Migraine World Summit, Paula Dumas.
Have you ever said, I'd do anything to make this migraine pain go away? I know I have. Today's guest has tried everything from Vicodin to chocolate and found humor to be surprisingly therapeutic. So she wrote a humorous memoir about her life with migraine to bring a smile to everyone else battling this perfectly evil disease. And we'll be back in just a minute to meet her.
Feel like you've tried absolutely everything for your migraine attacks without getting relief? Don't be discouraged. There's hope one click away on the migraineworldsummit.com website. Each year, we present conversations with 36 world-leading experts discussing the latest migraine treatments. Board-certified headache specialists from the Mayo Clinic, Harvard Medical School, Stanford, UCLA, and King's College London, offering insights to help you make real progress. You can also get our exclusive migraine treatment directory of over 250 different migraine therapies that people just like you are using today. Get an all-access pass to watch it anytime, anywhere, on demand at migraineworldsummit.com. You'll be glad you did. You're listening to Migraine Again. For show notes and resources from this episode, check out our program page on migraineagain.com. And now, once again, here's your host, Paula Dumas.
Let me welcome today's guest, Jeanette Fulda. Jeanette weighed an ideal 8 pounds 5 ounces when she was born, but eventually tipped the scales at 372 pounds. That is before she lost nearly 200 pounds through diet and exercise. And then in 2008, Jeanette got a headache that she wakes up to every single day. She tried to live the best awful life possible until she found what she calls semi-wellness. With biting humor and raw candor, Jeanette chronicled her painful experiences in her books Half-Assed, a weight loss memoir, and my favorite, Chocolate and Vicodin, my quest for relief from the headache that wouldn't go away. Jeanette Fulda's work has been featured on NBC's Today Show, CBS's The Early Show, in the Washington Post, and on the Wall Street Journal. Jeanette, how are you feeling today?
Oh, I'm feeling pretty good, kind of as well as possible.
I know what you mean. So let's start. As a fellow cocoa connoisseur, I have to ask you about your love for chocolate first. I love it too.
Yeah, it's great. I know it can be considered a migraine trigger. I've found with me, I don't think my headaches are too linked to food. So I usually, it's one of those things where it makes you feel good and you just kind of weigh the pros and cons. And sometimes it's kind of worth it for me.
Yeah, and unfortunately, as you said, health insurance doesn't cover mint chocolate chip ice cream, although I wish it did.
No, it doesn't.
Sometimes it can make you feel so much better when everything else makes you feel awful. Yeah,
it's kind of one of those small joys. When you're in pain all the time, you kind of look for those little things that can make you feel better. And sometimes, for me, I've had a weight problem most of life, so usually I kind of turn to food to make me feel better. Other people maybe turn to alcohol or drugs or stuff, but for me, it's definitely always been stuff like the chocolate.
There's an interesting study that came out about chocolate not being as big of a trigger as most people think.
Yeah, I know some people think that it might just be people crave it when they start to feel headache coming on because they feel bad, and that maybe it's not a trigger, or maybe it's just like a way of coping, but I have no idea if that's true or not.
Yeah, those food cravings can actually be premonitory symptoms of migraine.
Right,
the migraine has already begun. So how old were you when you first started experiencing head pain?
Well, I got one when I was about 21 years old, and then we were able to, I went on a beta blocker, and that actually kept it at bay for several years. But then on February 17th of 2008, I got a headache, and it just never went away. So I basically had a headache for 9.5 years. It's 24-hour a day, 7 days a week kind of thing. And it's called new daily persistent headache. And they don't really know what causes it, and it's kind of difficult to treat. It does kind of modulate. So sometimes it's low enough. Like right now it's pretty low, and I can function pretty well. But then other times it will get intense, then it's hard to do anything. And it actually took me a while to get that diagnosis. I think eventually after a few months I Googled the right keywords, and finally new daily persistent headache came up in the results. And from there then I was able to kind of work with doctors on it.
And from what I understand about new daily persistent, it can have migrainous features. So the line between new daily persistent and chronic migraine is pretty fuzzy.
Yeah, and there's definitely some. So most of the time it's bilateral, so it's on like both sides of my head, like near my forehead and my nose and my sinuses. But then there are times when I will get like, unilateral pain, like on one side. I'll occasionally, I know like if I get up earlier than usual, that always triggers a headache for me, and I will sometimes get nausea then. So it does have some of those same features as a traditional migraine.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you wrote this book, you were a young adult. What's it like to be a young adult, hanging around with a lot of other healthy young adults, but you're living in daily pain?
Yeah, I think it gives you more empathy for other people, particularly, older people. Like if I'm at the grocery store and I get maybe stuck behind somebody who's using a cane or something, I'm a lot more sympathetic to them, I think, than I used to be when I was a completely healthy person. Because, your body breaks down. Sometimes your body fails you and there's not that much you can do about it. I think it can be hard, particularly when like your friends are going out a lot when you're a young adult. They want to go out to bars or things like that. And I'm like, oh man, drinking is just going to make my headache worse. If I stay out too late, that's going to screw up my sleep schedule, and that's not going to be good for the headache either. So sometimes you do feel kind of left out, like you're not able to participate 100%. You're not really able to live your life the way you really would like to when you're kind of younger and doing those kind of things. Right.
And your friends, at least had a fun evening out to which to attribute their hangover in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. You called it a chaperone that kept me from going out. Which
Yep.
It's an apt term.
It does kind of dictate your actions. You can't do everything you want to do.
Mm-hmm. And it's not the most attractive thing for dating either.
No, it's not. It's kind of one of those things. It's a little bit difficult now with Google. Like, if I go out with somebody, if they have my name, obviously they can Google me and it's right there. So, that's what happens when you write a book about your headache. You make it very public. But it is one of those things I kind of try to hold back to maybe the second date, because it's one of those things where you're like, okay, let's just see if we like each other first, and then maybe we'll deal with this.
Maybe they won't do their research, so you can hope for that.
I don't know. People are pretty good about that these days, I think.
Mm-hmm. One of the cool things about your story that I saw was that you fought the battle of the bulge and of the brain. So how did you approach each one?
Well, I had lost, like I said, I'd spent about 2 years just eating better and exercising, and I'd lost about 200 pounds. So I was finally at a pretty healthy weight. And then I got this headache. And like I said, my way of coping is food. Food and humor are kind of the two ways I cope with bad stuff in my life. And I did find myself, on the way back home from work, I would stop at the grocery store and get something like a pastry or a chocolate or something and go home. And I did kind of feel like I was using like a drug user or something. It was definitely something didn't really have a healthy relationship with. So thankfully I don't really do that as much anymore. I do sometimes still have, maybe if I have a really bad day, I might go out and eat something that's not great. But you just try to kind of balance it and maybe forgive yourself for not being completely perfect. And I try to take care of myself as best as I can, but I would say I'm not, at my lowest weight anymore. And I just I think you just try to have to forgive yourself. I'm like, okay, I'll do the best that I can, but I do have some really bad circumstances that I'm functioning under.
We all have to wake up every day and just try to do our best and give ourselves a break now and then. And that's what those little moments of indulgence, like chocolate, or whatever your chocolate is. For some people, it's pumpkin spice latte or whatever. But those little moments of indulgence make it possible to get through when you're facing chronic pain. So we get it.
Yeah, and it sucks also that the pain kind of, sucks your energy. So it does become harder to exercise. Not that, even when I was, healthy, so to speak, there were times where I was like, I don't want to go out for a walk. You kind of drag yourself out to do it. I would say it's harder now because I am so low energy. I really have to force myself to do it.
It is, and it's difficult when you're dealing with multiple issues. Like, a lot of people have fibromyalgia and migraine, or depression and migraine, or anxiety and migraine. And, in your case, it was weight plus migraine. I liked what you said. Any problem with my ass was trumped by the problem with my head.
Yep. Got problems in all areas of my body.
You wake up and you say, what's the bigger problem today that I'm going to have to tackle?
Yep.
Well, they both take a lot of discipline, and I'm really impressed at the weight loss that you achieved. That was pretty remarkable. And, like many of us, we continue to fight. There isn't an easy answer. And it's day after day, all those small micro decisions add up. So,
yeah. And then, obesity comes with its own, problems. So it's one of those things where you're trying to manage the headache, and hopefully it's not causing problems in other areas of your body.
Well, my doctor colleagues would not forgive me if I didn't say that there is an increased likelihood that obesity actually increases the likelihood that you will escalate from episodic to chronic migraine.
Oh.
So those two things are a little bit more dangerous together, but we're all doing what we can to manage. So it's an important risk.
I got my headache when I was at my lowest weight. That was something that was always very ironic to me because I spent so much time really getting my act together and just learning to cook healthy foods and how to be more disciplined about exercise. And then it's at that point where I feel like I'm the healthiest in my life that I get struck with this thing.
It's ironic, just like migraine.
Yep.
I'm Paula Dumas with Migraine Again. Jeanette Fulda, the author of Chocolate and Vicodin, is our guest today. And when we come back, we're going to talk with her about some of the crazy suggestions that she's received on how to treat her migraine.
A thief is on the loose, breaking into 1 billion homes around the world like yours. This thief doesn't want your electronics or your jewelry. He wants your work days, your wallet, your relationships, and your most precious moments. On the street, he's known as Migraine. Ever heard of him? Lucky for you, your best defense is one click away at migraineworldsummit.com. Each year, watch 36 world-leading experts, including top patient advocates and headache specialists from the Mayo Clinic, Harvard, UCLA, and King's College London. Get an all-access pass to watch it anytime, anywhere, on demand at migraineworldsummit.com. You'll be glad you did. Hey, we'd like to hear about your life with migraine and offer some help and encouragement if we can. If you've got a question about migraine, we'll do our best to answer it and might even include it on one of our upcoming podcasts. If you'd like to submit a question, just go to our website, migraineagain.com/question.
And we're back with Jeanette Fulda, the author of Chocolate and Vicodin. Now, Jeanette, you talked about some crazy suggestions you got from people on your blog. What were a few of those?
Yeah, I started keeping a big list of them because there's so many things that can cause a headache and so many suggestions. It gets really weird. One person suggested a medically induced coma. I don't think I'm that desperate yet. One person said I should carry a magnet in my pocket. Another person thought it was the Wi-Fi signals, like their husband had gotten a headache when they installed a wireless router, and then they turned it off and he was fine.
Of course.
And I'm a web designer, so that's not really an option for me. I think someone said put a banana peel on your forehead or hot pepper on your tongue. One person called a psychic, or as they called them, a medical intuitive, who was able to then give them advice.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes people would mention Grey's Anatomy or an episode of House that they'd watched where someone had had a headache. I think one of the weirdest ones was someone said a headache was a sign of a spirit, like a ghost possessing my brain, and that pictures of saints, have halos over them because of that the spirits are possessing them. And I think he was totally serious. It was very strange.
But it does feel like that. It does feel like you're being possessed. It's taken over by surprise.
Does.
Yeah.
Like you have a poltergeist who's just, pressing on your head or something.
Or alien.
But yeah, I took the suggestions. I feel like people mean well. They're trying to help. So I usually kept that in mind when I got even some of these weird ones. But there is a point where you're just like, I can't possibly try all of these things. There's so many things that can cause a headache. So you just kind of pick out the ones that maybe, seem right to you or seem like they have maybe some possibility of leading to a cure or just maybe even some relief, so it's not as bad as it usually is.
Right. That's semi-absurd, so I will chase it and give it a little bit of respect and see where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you wrote that every person I saw was somehow convinced that the answer to my problem lay within their area of specialization. The acupuncturist, the chiropractor, the allergy doctor, the neurologist, and so on. And I have so experienced that myself. What is the most ridiculous guidance that you've received from well-intentioned health professionals?
I think one of the strangest things, the acupuncturist, she used sticky tape to put little ball bearings on the front and back of my ear in three places, in the front and back of my earlobe, and then on the upper part. And when I had a headache, I was supposed to kind of rub them together. So it was kind of like putting pressure on your ear was supposed to kind of help with the headache. I don't know. It felt okay. I don't think it helped with the headache, actually. Yeah.
It looked cool, right? It had to look cool.
Yeah, I don't know. It might have looked a little weird there. I have long hair, so I kind of keep my hair over it so people wouldn't ask me what the heck, why I had all these ball bearings on my ear.
What about the magnets and the chiropractor who had you raising your arms?
Yeah, so in my book, I talked about going to the chiropractor, and he asked me if I was a web designer. So I told him, yeah, I sit in front of a computer 8 hours a day. I try to take breaks, though, and I've rearranged everything so it's totally ergonomic and reduces eye strain. The electromagnetic field from the computer might be affecting your body, he said. Do you have a cell phone? I pulled my phone out of my purse. Put it in your pocket. I did. Now hold out your left hand towards me. I did. Dr. Jonas pushed down, and my arm moved towards the floor easily, though I resisted. All right, now put the phone back in your purse. I did. Again, we repeated the mutative form of arm wrestling, but this time my arm held firm against his pull. See how that affects your strength? See how you didn't push as hard, I thought? Oh, weird, I said. I was too polite to say, I think your testing methods are fundamentally flawed, to his face. I wasn't sure if my restraint was a personal trait to be revered or squashed.
But they do believe that they can help you. And you want to respect that.
Yeah.
And you want to stay hopeful. But
yeah, and you do want to try. You try to be open-minded because you don't. I still don't know what's causing the headache. So you do kind of want to be open to new things, but then you also kind of do I look like a total idiot if I'm trying this really bizarre treatment? So you kind of try to balance the two.
Right. Where's the hidden camera?
Yeah.
Now, you talked about some of the darker side of struggling with unending pain. Yeah, you said giving up looked tempting at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think about 8 or 9 months into it, I started to realize that this might be a permanent thing. Because at first you just think, oh, we'll find out what's going on here and I'll treat it and I'll just get back to my normal life, But then as it kept going on, it started to be like, oh man, I might have this for the rest of my life. And so then I got pretty depressed about that. And I wouldn't say I was totally suicidal, but it was like, I could see 5 years down the road, if things hadn't changed, then maybe suicide was an option. Whereas before, suicide had never been an option. Mm-hmm. So you do kind of get into this darker place. I would say, I went on antidepressants. I did go to the doctor, and that helped some. And then I think the big thing was just kind of accepting that I was now chronically ill. Because you do try to hold on to that life you had before you were chronically ill. Mm-hmm. But once you kind of accept, okay, my life has changed, then you can just start to live the best life despite that. And you kind of, that was a big mental turning point for me that kind of helped with the depression and then also just, how I live my life.
Right. And even though your suicidal thoughts were prompted by never-ending physical pain, you had an experience with one of your coworkers that really moved me as you described it in the book.
Yeah, I got a text, I think in the middle of the night, from a coworker saying she was on the way to the hospital and I was one of her best friends. And she had been suicidal. And thankfully she had, called someone. She'd called the ambulance and they'd taken her in. And I had to, I just went in. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, but I was like, well, you're my friend. I'm going to go see you. So I kind of just got up in the middle of the night. And then she asked her if she needed anything. She was like, could you buy me some chocolate? So I stopped at like a drugstore at 3 o'clock in the morning and bought her some Reese's peanut butter cups. And I finally found the hospital. I got really great parking. Evidently, that's the secret to getting parking at the hospital, is just to get there very early in the morning. And then I found her, and we just kind of discussed, how we felt. I was like, hey, I actually was sort of suicidal recently, so I can definitely see where you're coming from. And, it's nice being able to just be there with someone and to help her out because, like I said, being ill, I think it gives you more empathy for other people, and it kind of makes you realize that there's a lot of invisible suffering out there, that people might be dealing with things that you can't tell just by looking at them.
Well, let's talk about that for just a minute. Being that go-to friend for somebody else and then finding that migraine buddy on those days that you're not thinking clearly and you really need help or encouragement or even just a ride.
Yeah, I think it is important to have that support system. And if you live in the same city as your family, maybe it's just a family member, but I know a lot of people live away from their family. So just finding maybe friends you can rely on, which can be hard when you have a headache because you don't really feel like socializing all the time. But, I think maybe somebody at work or maybe somebody from maybe a community group, church or something like that, who you can call when you really have a problem like that can be a really great thing to have.
That's true. And migraine and other invisible illnesses can be incredibly isolating. People think that they're the only ones dealing with this problem.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that's not true. And that was one of the reasons I wrote the book, because I did want people to know, hey, you're not the only one. There are actually a lot of people who deal with this. And I've gotten lots of emails from people since the book came out that also deal with this thing. It's good to connect with them. I'm kind of glad that I can make them see that, hey, you're not alone. There are other people that have to deal with this.
The burdens that we carry are sometimes visible and sometimes invisible. Weight was very visible, but the head pain, not so visible.
Yeah, and it was interesting contrasting those because, there are definitely times where I wish people couldn't see my weight problem. Like it wasn't just written all over me. But then there are times with the headache where I really wished they could see it because I was feeling so bad. I kind of wanted more empathy. I wanted more people to relate to me, but they couldn't see it. So it's definitely, visible and invisible illnesses. They kind of both have their pros and cons.
You said in your book, if I were a dog, they would have put me down by now.
Yeah, my friend had a dog who had a lot of health problems. She was kind of arthritic and would go to the door for no reason and then circle around. And it did make me think, if I was a dog, they would have put me down by now. I was in so much pain, and it's kind of strange how you think about how we treat pain in animals, whereas with humans, it's kind of different.
A lot of us in unrelenting pain will reach for anything that will help relieve it. And in your case, Vicodin was another of those things that you reached for. Did that help you?
Not really, unfortunately. I actually got it. It was from like an old tooth surgery or something, and so I took it, and I forgot to take it with food, and that actually makes you nauseous after a few hours. So I think if anything, it actually just made me feel worse.
Yeah. Well, we do need to say, though, that Vicodin is one of those medications that is an opioid pain reliever. And a lot of people depend upon them in order to get by. But narcotic pain medication can be habit forming, even at regular doses. So I would just encourage anyone that's taking Vicodin or a medication like it to be sure with your doctor that you're taking the right amount and not too much. Now, another medication that is frequently used in pain and migraine specifically is topiramate. And I chuckled when I read your experience with topiramate. I think one of the things you said was it made you thin and stupid.
Oh, yeah, Topamux. It kind of made me feel zoned out, like almost like an observer of my life. And I remember it also kind of made it harder to talk sometimes. Like I would think about a word that I wanted and I just couldn't find it. It's kind of like reaching up and you just can't quite get something off the top shelf. You know, it's like it's right there. It's almost there. But it isn't quite reachable. So I didn't stay on that one too long because it didn't really seem to help my headache either.
Well, you know, side effects are an issue with a lot of medications. And when they challenge your ability to function or challenge your identity, like yours being the smart girl, and make you feel not so smart, you really have to weigh the pros and the cons and say, is the relief that I'm getting or the prevention that I'm getting from this worth the side effects that I'm experiencing?
Yeah, it's that whole, what if the cure is worse than the disease? It's the famous saying. And even now, like one of the medications I'm on gives me dry mouth, which is really annoying. But, you know, I can treat that. I can choose sugarless gum, and I have like a Biotine mouth spray I can use. So in that case, you know, it's like it's worth it. Dry mouth sucks, but, you know, it's much better than the headache.
These are the trade-offs we have to make. So when we come back, we're going to talk with you a little bit more about laughter and humor and how we can use that kind of comic relief to help manage our pain. I'm Paula Dumas. Our guest today is Jeanette Fulda, and you're listening to Migraine Again.
Feel like you've tried absolutely everything for your migraine attacks without getting relief? Don't be discouraged. There's hope one click away on the migraineworldsummit.com website. Each year, we present conversations with 36 world-leading experts discussing the latest migraine treatments. Board-certified headache specialists from the Mayo Clinic, Harvard Medical School, Stanford, UCLA, and King's College London, offering insights to help you make real progress. You can also get our exclusive migraine treatment directory of over 250 different migraine therapies that people just like you are using today. Get an all-access pass to watch it anytime, anywhere, on demand at migraineworldsummit.com. You'll be glad you did. This is Migraine Again, encouraging and empowering you in your battle against migraine because you deserve to feel better. You can hear this conversation again or share it with someone who might like to hear it by going to migraineagain.com. Now, once again, here's Paula.
We're back with Jeanette Fulda. Jeanette, what effect does laughter and humor have for those of us in pain?
I think it's just another coping mechanism. You know, there's that thing, you know, if you're not laughing, then you're crying. Things are so bad. It helps to have that positive spin on it, and that maybe you can find sort of a dark humor in it. I think also it's just kind of a distraction. That's one of a coping method with pain is to sort of distract yourself and try not to focus on the sensations of pain. So, you know, making a joke or laughing about something can kind of help you not focus on the pain and have more of a positive attitude about it. I will say the one bad thing about laughing is, like, if I've been laughing a lot with friends, it actually, you know, I have to use muscles in my face I don't usually use, and those can actually get sore and then make my headache worse.
Oh, no.
When I'm laughing with people and I try to relax my face, and I probably look like I have Botox or something, but that's one of those unfortunate side effects about laughing too much.
So distraction and amusement is safer for you than a raucous laughter. Yeah. Unlike, you know, when I'm eating ice cream, that in itself is sort of a distraction because that's a pleasurable thing. You can focus on that instead of the pain. What do you find funny, or what do you use for distraction when the pain gets unbearable and maybe you've taken as much medication as you can take? You know, I think having friends and family helps. You know, if you can just call someone and you can joke around together, so you're not just, you know, on your own, and having support like that,
help so you don't kind of go too far down in a hole. They can kind of help pull you out of your hole. So I think community, other people that understand what you're going through, you can kind of be on the same wavelength and make jokes together. And maybe if you're not naturally a funny person, having a funnier friend or someone who can kind of shed some of that humor on it can help. Mm-hmm. Or even just maybe reading funny books. There are people who certainly have dealt with their own problems in life, but might maybe have more of a funny view on things that can help you.
Few of us are funny. It's a gift. And the internet and Netflix are full of great humor now. I know there are a lot of comedy specials on Netflix that people like to watch, and they watch the YouTube videos, one after another, just to kind of take their mind into a different place than pain.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we talk about, pain versus suffering. So pain is just kind of like the raw input you get that's getting sent to your brain, whereas suffering is kind of like how you interpret it and how you kind of modulate it. Mm-hmm. Like usually the comparison I make is sometimes maybe you're watching TV or listening to the radio and you suddenly realize like you haven't been paying attention for the last minute and you have no idea what they're talking about anymore. Well, your ears were still working. Like you were still getting the input. Your eardrum was still vibrating. You just weren't paying attention to it. So your experience is different. So I think pain can be that same way where you can't cut off the signals coming to your brain, but you can kind of modulate to an extent how much you pay attention to it. And that can then kind of change how much you suffer from it. I know my brother's been on my case to start meditating because I think if you meditate, you kind of exercise those controls in your head more. It kind of makes you more able to do that. I think the example sort of like a Buddhist monk who can kind of like zen out. I don't know if I can get to that level. But I do think having a positive attitude then helps with that and kind of helps you not focus on the pain as much, which can kind of help you not suffer quite as much from it.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who are using meditation now to deal with chronic pain. And there's some good evidence in other areas, but there's currently some research going on to study meditation specifically for migraine and headache. So I'm excited to see when that comes out, if that gives people a new tool in their toolbox.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something I've just kind of put off, but I should do it. I think you kind of get burned out. Like I said, I've been doing this for 9.5 years now. Mm-hmm. So, the first couple of years I was very on top of things, trying treatments after treatments. But then after a while, you just kind of like, this is my life. I'll deal with it as best as I can. But I think, that's maybe the struggles with long-term illness is you do kind of have to continue to try to push yourself to still be open to new things like meditation that might help you.
Mm-hmm. So why is a sense of humor vital when we're trying to test one treatment after another?
I think, because you kind of get depressed otherwise. Like, I got depressed about 8 or 9 months in there, and I kind of stopped focusing on the humor of things. But, it's like, well, what else are you going to do if you can't laugh at it? It's just so sad.
What are the alternatives? Right.
Yeah, what is the alternative?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of your doctors told you it's good to have a sense of humor. A positive attitude helps combat suffering. Yeah. So optimism is key, right?
Yeah, and it can be hard to maintain that over a long time because, I definitely still have bad days, or I'll have like a lost day where I just can't focus and I can't concentrate and I just don't get anything done. And I try not to beat myself up over that too much, but, part of it, again, is just trying to have a positive attitude about it and just focus on the good things in your life and the things you are able to achieve and just not being too hard on yourself.
We all have a few of those really optimistic friends. And sometimes you want to shake them and say, the world's not all perfect. But at the same point in time, we gravitate to those optimistic and upbeat and funny people in our lives because battling chronic pain every day is really hard.
Yeah. And just people who can maybe have more empathy for you. Because I have, like I said, I had a blog that I tracked my weight loss with, and I eventually started talking about my headache on there. And I would occasionally get an email for someone who clearly did not understand what I was going through. They were kind of like, your blog used to be so great, but it's so depressing now. So bad. And you're like, oh, wow, thanks so much. You kind of just kept that to yourself. So having people who are not like that, people who, even if maybe they're not going through chronic pain themselves, can at least, be empathetic to you, I think is very important.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, Jeanette, our time today is just about up. Do you have any closing thoughts that you can share with our audience?
I think it's important to just accept your situation and kind of, once you are chronically ill, learning to live the best life despite that. And it's maybe not the life you wanted, it's not the life you expected, but it's the one you got. And what your attitude is towards it, what your state of mind towards it is going to kind of modulate how you feel about it. So even if you are in pain a lot, which sucks and is awful, hopefully you can still see the bright side of things.
Agreed, and very well said. The book is Chocolate and Vicodin, My Quest for Relief from the Headache That Wouldn't Go Away. And you can find a link to buy it on our website. Jeanette Fulda, thanks so much for spending time with us. We've really enjoyed talking with you.
Thanks.
Well, Paula, now it's that time in the program where listeners ask questions and we try to answer them. And today's question comes from James, who writes, I've been battling migraine for over a decade now, and I've tried almost everything. I feel like I'm out of options. I just can't take the pain one more day. Please help.
I will try, James. This is perhaps the most common comment that we get, and the most heartbreaking for me, because I think that there are just millions of people who are in the same situation. After 5 to 10 years of making the rounds and talking to not just one doctor, but 2 or 3 or 4, and you feel like you're doing everything that they're telling you to do, and they're not getting better, there are a couple of things that they don't tell you. Sometimes they don't tell you that there is no cure. There are just these treatments that I can give you. Oftentimes, they don't tell you that there are many more therapies than the ones that they're sharing with you. For the Migraine World Summit, we actually prepared a list of over 200 different treatments that are available to people with migraine. And some of them are medical and some of them are non-medical. But there are many, many more than you might hear about from your local doctor. So if you really want to take matters into your own hands, that's a great tool to use. The incredible thing that should give all of us hope is that every year, new ways to treat migraine and new research comes out every single year. And so that gives me hope, because if you're not getting those answers from your local doctor, then you can either do one of two things. You can keep shopping and trying to find another doctor that knows more about it, or you can do your own research and find out what else there is to help you treat your case. I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you what's appropriate for your particular case, but what I can do is include links to some of the tools and resources that will help you to find them on your own. So we'll include that below today's program.
And Paula, you mentioned the Migraine World Summit. We've had people who kind of in their frustration say, well, sure, you have access to all these doctors, I don't. That's part of the point of the Migraine World Summit, is to open up these great lines of communication between the professionals and anyone. Tell folks how they can find out more about the World Summit.
Exactly. Well, you can check it out at any point in time, 24/7, 365. It's at migraineworldsummit.com. And during 1 week in April, we make these 36 world-leading experts available for free to watch online. So you don't have to get out of your chair or go anywhere. You get to watch them all for free. And these are, the leading experts from Mayo Clinic and UCLA and Harvard and King's College of London. They're the gurus of the space who are doing the most research. And you can learn so much from them just from watching those talks. The most important thing to remember is that you have to be humble and curious and tenacious, because we think we've tried everything and we think we know everything there is to be tried. But what we really only know is what we've heard from our local doctor and our close friends and family members. And there's much, much more to learn about this mysterious beast called migraine. And you can learn it too. It's available for free online. So check it out.
Yep. And James, you are not alone. We invite you to revisit us here on Migraine Again, and everyone to do the same, just because this is the place where like minds meet and discuss these issues. So thanks very much for your question. And Paula, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Paula Dumas, wishing you a pain-free day.
We hope that you feel encouraged and empowered in your battle against migraine, because you deserve better. If you want to suffer less and live more despite migraine, be sure to check out all the great resources on migraineagain.com. Follow us on your favorite social network and subscribe to our free newsletter and this program. If you enjoyed today's episode, tell a friend about it, and be sure and join us again next time on Migraine Again. You'll be glad you did.